Hello, friends, fans, fam, and foes. Welcome back to Meshcast, formerly known as Mondays in the Mesh, but my neurodivergence got the best of me. We're doing this whenever, but I'm really enjoying it, so I might be posting more than once a week. Shh, don't tell my future self. All right, grab a coffee. This week, our entry is titled Doing Great and Not at All. It's from while I was awaiting my ADHD diagnosis back in September 25th, 2017. And if you want to follow along, you can do so on my Substack at lettucetothemesh.substack.com right here. I started the day off with some depressive thoughts. I think mostly because I had another multi-day PMS migraine. I sent a message to my OBGYN and got a new birth control prescription because fuck that. Hopefully it arrives quickly. Hopefully it doesn't make me crazy. Anyway, that's not really what I wanted to talk about. Or maybe I didn't want to talk about anything at all. Maybe I just felt like rambling about what was going through my mind because I haven't in a while. Maybe I'm just procrastinating. That's probably it, in all honesty. I'm a little overwhelmed at work today. I have a lot of deadlines happening, and I've been in a pretty productive patch lately, but I have my one-on-one tomorrow, and I always feel my deadlines the most on those days. Just a lot of pressure. I had a lot of bad days after my self-diagnosis, a sort of self-imposed paralysis. The mind is a powerful thing. I've been working on getting back to the habits I was trying to develop before I realized there might be something more I could be doing to help myself. Really, I'm just eager as hell for my appointment. It's a week and 2 days away. It's felt like forever since I booked it, but that's just me not being present. I only have the tools I have now. I can only work with what I have now. I just really hope all this waiting isn't for nothing. I really hope there's something I can do to help myself. I don't expect a magic pill. I just need a little boost. I'm just scared, maybe. What if this doesn't help? What if nothing helps? What if I'm just being dramatic and lazy? It could be true, right? Maybe I'm just not trying hard enough. I'm acting privileged, expecting something else to do the work for me. I mean, I'd still be doing the work, obviously. It's still me, right? I need to stop fretting about what might be. I need to keep focused on what is. I have skills that I've developed to organize my thoughts. I just need to continue to utilize those. I'm not hopeless or helpless. I'm capable. I'm just struggling a bit. That's okay. I might get scolded by my boss, but that's okay. It's nothing I can't handle. I'm not going to get fired. I'm just going to continue the cycle of being nervous for my one-on-ones, then relieved when they're over, and lo and behold, they're never as bad as I work them up in my head to be. I'll get through it like I do every time, but hopefully this is the last one I endure before my treatment begins. I'm not sure how long before that sort of thing is set in place. After this first session, how long until I'm actually on the path I so desperately want to be on. It feels like I'm waiting for my life to start. I don't really like the sound of that. Before my treatment begins. It sounds so dramatic. Ugh. That's what it is, though. That's what I'm hoping for. Treatment. I realize now that I'm fueling the stigma by shaming myself. I need to accept what it is if I'm going to expect anyone else to. It's all going to be okay. It will. All in all, things are great. They really are. I'm in an excellent mood today since my headache has finally subsided. It's all good in the hood, yo. All good in the hood. Sorry again for the sleeping chihuahua. Yeah. So, what is there to say about this one? Well, I wanted to start off by addressing the stigma at hand, both for ADHD medication and for um, ADHD as a diagnosis and self-diagnosis, frankly. Um, I could talk for a really long time about self-diagnosis and my thoughts and feelings on it, but that's not, I don't think that's the message for this one. Ultimately, the 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 elephant in the room is that ADHD is extremely prevalent at the moment, um, as is autism. I have both. Don't tell the people in my life, they'll clutch their pearls. Here's the thing, this entry came at a time pre TikTok, pre fad, pre neurodivergent trend, um, where I was having a really hard time at work. And I talked about this in my last video, that I went through this chapter where I just felt like I was having a really hard time with everything. But I have always been had a natural propensity toward understanding the why of my behavior, or my behavioral patterns, I guess, or my impulses. And that's what led me to, I mean, it's what's led me on my entire journey, frankly. But it's like, why am I an artist? Because nothing else makes sense to me. Why am I a writer? Because it's the only way that I make sense of things and myself. Why can't I get my work done? Why can't I sit down at my desk and start? Why do I need to fill up my water bottle and go to the bathroom suddenly and check whether the temperature's okay, and, maybe check in with my coworker real quick, or check the weather on my phone? Like, it's like my brain is just like throwing up these like freaking hazard cones when I have one very clear directive on the table, and I just can't, can't. Don't know how, totally know how, feel totally daunted because I can only see how to do the whole thing at one time, and I don't know how to break it into smaller pieces, or how to just look at one piece at a time. There are other factors at play in these symptoms, of course, but at the core of it was that I just felt like I had so much that I wanted and needed to do, and I was having such a hard time just doing it. And I was really confused, frustrated, perplexed by what felt like my brain working against my body. Or my body working against my brain? I guess that's what it is, yeah. It felt like my body working against my brain. Like I didn't have control over my actions. And unfortunately, to this day, this is still something I struggle with, but that's the thing, is that finding out or putting your finger on what it is that's causing the symptoms that are causing you strife, it doesn't fix what it is. And unfortunately, and I even mentioned this, I had a lot of bad days after my self-diagnosis, a sort of self-imposed paralysis. The mind is a powerful thing. Is, unfortunately, in some cases, putting your finger on it can make it worse, because now it's like you've looked at it and you can't unsee it. But at least in my case, the reason that I've sought any of my diagnoses is because I was coping with symptoms that felt like coping with symptoms that didn't look like things I had seen much, or what am I editing, AJ here? I was just trying to say that I felt like I was experiencing um, reactions or manifestations of my symptoms that I hadn't seen represented in like the media or whatever. And obviously, there's a lot of reasons for that, but I just felt like what I was going through wasn't normal, or at least it wasn't like the normal person's anxiety or anxious thoughts that everyone likes to brush off with, like, oh, everyone is anxious sometimes. That's all. I guess it's like, okay, the dough wall, right? So last week I talked a lot about the dough wall. I have been on this journey of self-improvement, like being my best self, like being the version of myself that's not hateable, that isn't annoying as fuck, except unfortunately that's on this journey of figuring out who I am. I have found out that I'm just naturally annoying, and now I'm trying to lean into it because the universe, the mesh, told me so. So throughout this entry, I am describing ways that I felt not good at all, or that ways that I was struggling. And then at the end, I'm like, no, I'm great, but I'm in a good mood. And I think that that kind of sums up the experience, the general experience of life for me leading up to my diagnoses was white knuckling, you know, like the friggin' roller coaster of what version of myself am I going to be today? How am I going to react to this? How fragile is this good mood that I'm in? How long is this bad mood going to last? Like, I felt like I just was, as I've said in past videos, at the will of my own brain. And I just so badly wanted to make sense of it. But I had all of these different reasons to feel wrong. Okay, so I start out talking about how I started the day off with some depressive thoughts, I think because I had a PMS migraine, and that I sent a message to my OBGYN asking for a new birth control prescription, and hopefully it doesn't make me crazy. So this is in my mid-20s, I started getting these PMS migraines, and I had switched birth controls to a, what's it called, like a gradual one, like the ones where it's like steps throughout the month, because I thought that that might help with my mood fluctuations. And lo and behold, at the end of that third week of it ramping up and it dropping off, I was getting these crazy bad migraines. So I was wanting to switch birth controls, but then there's an undercurrent of anxiety always with starting a new medication, but starting a new birth control because you don't know how it's going to affect you. You know, hormones affect everything. So I was dealing with that, and also this was before I understood anything about my actual, what was going on in my body throughout my cycle. And I am so thankful for this post TikTok era of knowledge and education and awareness around women's cycles and things like that, people with ovary cycles, because people who menstruate, because it's like, it's been life-changing to know, okay, I'm supposed to start my period tomorrow, so if I'm feeling dismal, maybe I don't need to panic write an essay about, oh God, what am I doing wrong with my life, and I'm back at square one, and yada 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 yada, only to 2 days later, be like, oh, never mind, it's my period. So that, but also energetically, like my energy fluctuates every single day, and part of that is due to hormones, and I am trying to pay attention to the couple weeks leading up to my period versus the couple weeks after my period, blah, 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 blah. If you are someone who menstruates and you are not tracking your cycles, frankly, in an app, because they actually educate you on what's going on in your body during certain times of the month, and it's really freaking fascinating and amazing, and holy crap, I can't believe this isn't more common knowledge type stuff. Just how much it affects us. Like literally you have days where your joints are looser because of the hormones going on in your body. It's crazy, you guys. Get on, you period havers. Get on a period app, seriously. But I digress. That's the first period. The first paragraph. Second paragraph, I say, anyway, that's not really what I wanted to talk about, or maybe I didn't want to talk about anything at all. Maybe I just felt like rambling while it was going through my mind because I haven't in a while. Maybe I'm just procrastinating. That's probably it, in all honesty. Just procrastinating. Just procrastinating. I'm a little overwhelmed at work today, so we have PMS, procrastination, overwhelm. And then I say, I have a lot of deadlines, and I've been in a pretty productive patch lately, but I have my one-on-one tomorrow, and I always feel my deadlines the most on those days. Cuckoo, cuckoo. I had a lot of bad days after my self-diagnosis, sort of a self-imposed paralysis. So now we've got paralysis. So we've got PMS, procrastination, overwhelm, paralysis. Eager as hell for my appointment. It's a week and 2 days away. It's felt like forever since I booked it, but that's just me not being present. I only have the tools I have now. I can only work with what I have now. I just really hope all this waiting isn't for nothing. I really hope there's something I can do to help myself. Anticipation, not being present. I don't expect a magic pill. I just need a little boost. I'm just scared maybe. What if this doesn't help? What if nothing helps? What if I'm just being dramatic and lazy? We have paranoia, we have catastrophizing, we have fear in this one. Could be true, right? Maybe I'm just not trying hard enough. I'm acting privileged. I'm expecting something else to do the work for me. I mean, I'd still be doing the work, obviously. It's still me, right? So now we have privilege. So now now pride. Now I'm afraid that I'm being prideful. So we have ego stepping in now. And it's still me, right? Ego's like, hey, like, wait a second. Who's doing the work for you? Because I want to do the work. I don't want to go away. That's what my ego's saying. I need to stop fretting about what might be. I need to keep focused on what is. I have skills that I've developed to help organize my thoughts. I just need to continue to utilize those. I'm not hopeless or helpless. I'm capable. I'm just struggling a bit. That's okay. I might get scolded by my boss, but that's okay. It's nothing I can't handle. I'm not going to get fired. I'm just going to continue this cycle of being nervous for my one-on-ones, then relieved when they're over, and lo and behold, they're never as bad as I worked them up to my head to be. I'll get through it though, like I do every time. So then we have, this is catastrophizing. I might get scolded by my boss, but then I say I'm not going to get fired. So then I'm like, okay, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Really, I'm like trying desperately to talk some sense into myself, or to talk some peace into myself, because I knew that I wasn't doing my best, or I knew that I was capable of a lot more that I wasn't doing. And I knew I had a much larger capacity that I was not meeting, and a higher standard that I didn't feel able to meet because I was leaving things to the last minute. And that made it so that I didn't have time to make iterations, but also I didn't have enough time to create space to look at it with fresh eyes to maybe create like a second iteration, a better, an improved version of something. Anyway, just a lot of spiraling here. Here's spiraling. And then I say, hopefully this is the last one I endure before my treatment begins. And then I mentioned I'm not sure how long it takes for medication to work, basically. And it feels like I'm waiting for my life to start. I've had a lot of chapters in my life, and I'm in one right now where I feel like I'm waiting for my life to start. So jury's out on what that means. That's a thread that I'm still tugging on. And then I say I don't really like the sound of that before my treatment begins. It sounds so dramatic. That's what it is, though. That's what I'm hoping for, is treatment. I realize now that I'm fueling the stigma by shaming myself. I need to accept what it is if I'm going to expect anyone else to. So here now I was dealing with self-judgment, and is this contempt? What is contempt? Yeah, contempt. I'm like brushing off my own symptoms as dramatic, you know? That feeling that I'm describing of it feels like I'm waiting for my life to start. It rubs me a little bit the wrong way, but unfortunately it's kind of like the stuck in the dough wall kind of feeling, where I'm just like, I feel like I'm at the cusp of something that I want badly, whether it's a life change or an experience or a thing or a person, relationship, whatever. This is actually a really great example of the torment of ADHD, which is that I can be like, boom, 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 yes, 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 yes. I'm punching through, and then I go, where was I? And I keep staring at this one little bit on my whiteboard that means nothing. It means nothing. Maybe I need to erase it. And then my brain goes, you're looking at it for a reason. It must mean something. This is where the boundaries of the mesh come into play. All right. But I am going to erase that because I realized it's... Okay. All right. So this is the pro and con of recognizing a potential diagnosis in yourself, whatever, a potential disorder or divergence, whatever, is that when you can see the thing, then you feel like, well, okay, then I need the solution for that thing, rather than continuing to try to just strengthen yourself around the disability. You just want to fix or target the disability. And that is what I was feeling like, was like I was putting a lot of work into trying to counteract all the symptoms that I was coping with. But I was just like, man, like, could it be that medication, ADHD medication, could help me not have to build so much scaffolding around myself every time I want to sit down to just focus? But ultimately, where I'm at now is just trying to create a life for myself that serves or nurtures me to not feel so strained by the way my brain works all the time, but also to continue, like I said, strengthening myself around the way that my brain works, the pitfalls of the way that my brain works as well. So anyway, that's what the I'm waiting for my life to start means. And then I don't really like the sound of that before my treatment begins. It sounds so dramatic, but that's what it is. That's what I'm hoping for, treatment. Yeah, I was judging myself, and then I say I realize now that I'm fueling the stigma by shaming myself. I need to accept what it is if I'm going to expect anyone else to. So yeah, I'm like, how am I going to be like, oh, I want this medication so bad, and then be like, do you really need it though? In the same friggin' sentence. And then turn around and be like, when people in my life are like, oh, you have ADHD, sure. You know, like, what, like, I have to take my own shit.
I don't know what happened, but I basically was saying that I have to take my own shit seriously before I can expect anyone else to. And then Toby distracted me again with his cuteness, and I somehow was able to capture this, even though I didn't know that the previous clip had cut off. So there's Toby barking now.
My phone died while I was recording Toberson here. And then I got sleepy when I was waiting for it to reboot. And I'm probably fatiguing myself by yapping. So I'll close it up here on the floor. I end this reading after the depressive thoughts and the PMS thoughts and the overwhelm and the stress and the procrastination and the eagerness and the lack of presence and the maybe I'm being dramatic and lazy and maybe some what's wrong with me, I'm just struggling, blah blah blah. I'm like, you know what, actually all in all things are great, they really are. So ultimately that's always the conclusion that I come to in these writing sessions, is that all things considered, I know that I'm doing relatively well because I've been worse. Not because like there are others in the world who have it worse. I don't think that that's relevant. I think everyone's allowed to feel as bad as they want to feel about their given circumstances, or as good as they want to feel about their given circumstances. But point being, they ought. What is the point? What's the point, Toby? We got a bath today. Let's say this is a mental illness analogy. So mental illness is to physical illness, all right? So what I was comparing to in this context is like a really bad flu or like COVID or something like that, basically. Really bad virus. It's like a really bad flu compared to a skin tag. That's what my symptoms felt like in this context, is like, it wasn't like incapacitating, like fully disabling, like in with a flu where you just need to freaking lay down, you can't do anything, you don't have the energy for anything, you can't think straight. Like I was still functioning well enough, able to do certain things, but it was like, yeah, it was just really hard to do all the things I had to do, and it was just really annoying and frustrating to not be able to make as much progress as I knew I was capable of making, and to not be able to tackle my to-do list. And ultimately that's a lesson I've come to learn over time since then, or I've had to learn over time since then, is that to-do lists are not Bible. They're not set in stone. They're fluid, and they must be fluid. When you have a fluid way of being, aka hormones or neurodivergence or mood disorder or trauma or family, kids, any of life's unpredictabilities make life harder for anyone, of course. But it's like I have all my ducks ready to go. They're on the table. They're right there. All I gotta do is line them up. But I just can't bring myself to sit still long enough to get them lined up. So I got the diagnosis, I got the medication, I was on and off the medication for a few years, and ultimately it's not a tool that is working for me at this chapter in my life, because it was exacerbating other symptoms that I didn't like. Mostly anxiety, OCD. Why'd your ears perk up at that? It started me off, actually. Not started me off, but it's a touch point in my ADHD diagnosis journey that kind of set me off on the path of like, oh, maybe there's something I'm not doing quite right or as well as I could or something. I don't know. And it was like a friend of a friend. They were complaining about at work how this person that they work with was giving them a hard time for being favored or whatever. But this person who was telling the story was kind of standing up for themselves, and they were like, well, I don't know what to say, man. Like, I'm a good employee. Like, I keep my head down and I get my work done. And it's so simple, but I couldn't relate to that. And something in my brain went, ew, keep your head down, get your work done. And then I would try to put my head down, get my work done. And thus the journey began, where I was like, why can't I do this? Why can't I just put my head down and get my work done? And then it was, it also triggered the journey of, am I doing the work I'm meant to be doing? Am I on the career path that I'm meant to be on? Maybe it's not the right thing for my brain, and blah, 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 blah. And so here I am now, still on that same journey, still struggling every single day to accomplish what I need to accomplish. And also still trying to find the thing that feels natural and fluid along with me. And maybe this is it. I don't know. We'll see. You'll be the judge of that. Subscribe if you give a shit. Don't if you don't. Do if you don't. Anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for reading. I'm also going to start making art videos, so stay tuned for that. And over and out. Oh, so good.